Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're taking a really close look at the true blueprint of a successful business. We're talking about functional human resource management. When a lot of people hear the letters HR, they immediately jump to that old cliche, the department that's just there to hire people and, well, fire them. But today, we're going to completely shatter that myth. We are going to explore the real scope of HR and see exactly how it operates as the literal nervous system of an entire organization. Here is our quick roadmap for today's explainer. We'll start by defining functional HRM, break down the 3 HR pillars, walk through the employee life cycle, examine why HR really matters to the bottom line, and finally, look at HR in the digital era. Moving right along to Section 1, defining functional HRM, the foundation of people management. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the heavy emphasis on that word life cycle, because human resource management, it isn't just a single isolated activity. It's actually a continuous collection of highly interrelated functions. These operations literally begin long before a person even signs an offer letter, and they keep going well after that employee eventually moves on from the company. It's the day-to-day operational side of HRM, the gears constantly turning behind the scenes to acquire the right talent, help them grow, keep them motivated, and retain them, all while making sure the whole shebang complies with legal and ethical standards. All right, on to Section 2, the 3 HR pillars, how HR thinks and operates. So let's zoom out for just a second to look at the overarching framework that really holds the whole HR department together. You can cleanly divide HR's brain, so to speak, into 3 distinct pillars. First up, you've got managerial functions. These are the things HR managers do just to run their own department: planning, organizing, controlling, all that good stuff. Then, right in the middle, we have the operative functions. This is the core, the real meat of it. It's the day-to-day employee management, like recruitment, staffing, and compensation. We're actually going to spend a lot of time here in just a minute. And finally, over on the right, advisory functions. This is where HR professionals act as internal consultants. They're guiding the top leadership on really complex issues. Think labor laws, conflict resolution, or organizational policies. So HR isn't just executing basic tasks. They're actively advising the top brass. Which brings us to Section 3, the employee life cycle, the human journey. Okay, we are transitioning now from those high-level pillars right down into the living structure of the organization. We're going to focus on the major functions of that operative pillar we just looked at. But before we look at the full cycle, we really need to clear up a super common misconception. People swap the words recruitment and selection all the time, but in practice, they're actually exact opposites. Recruitment is like a giant magnet. It's purely about attraction. It's about generating a massive pool of applicants using job portals, campus visits, social media, whatever it takes. It is all about gathering. Selection, on the other hand, acts like a funnel. It's rigorous elimination. It's the process of screening those applications, running tests, doing interviews, and checking backgrounds so you can choose the absolute most suitable candidate from that big pool. So remember, recruitment gathers, selection eliminates, and chooses. All right, so walk with me through this first half of the employee journey, what we call the acquisition and integration phase. It all kicks off with step 1, human resource planning. This is where the company sits down and asks, okay, how many people do we need and exactly what skills do they have to have? This early manpower planning feeds directly into step 2, recruitment, and step 3, selection, which we just nailed down. Then, once the perfect candidate is chosen, they hit step 4, induction and orientation. Absolutely crucial stuff. This is how you familiarize a new hire with the company's vision, the workplace rules, safety measures, getting them adjusted quickly so they feel at home. And that flows right into step 5, training and development. Modern companies see this as a never-ending process to boost current skills and prep people for future leadership roles. Let's move to and see how this builds the second half of the journey. Once an employee is fully in the door and integrated, the focus chronologically shifts to maintaining and growing them. So step 1 here is performance management, setting goals and giving that continuous feedback. Step 2 is compensation and benefits. This is making sure people get fair financial and non-financial rewards, basic salary, bonuses, insurance, the works. Step 3 is employee welfare, covering both physical and mental well-being. Think safe working conditions and work-life balance initiatives. Then we have step 4, employee relations, which is all about handling grievances and collective bargaining to keep the peace. Step 5 is career management, focusing on promotions and succession planning. And finally, step 6, separation management. Look, every single employment relationship ends eventually, right? Whether it's retirement, resignation, or termination, HR makes sure this exit is professionally managed, totally legally compliant, and uses tools like exit interviews to figure out how to improve retention down the line. Let's jump into Section 4, why HR really matters, the organizational impact. We've seen the step-by-step human journey, but let's pivot for a second to the macro perspective. Why would a company completely crumble without these operational functions? So the crucial point is this. Functional HRM is absolutely not just administrative overhead. These highly interconnected functions directly translate into massive organizational impact. By recruiting competent staff and managing their careers, HR dramatically reduces the massive cost of labor turnover. Through continuous training and fair compensation, they're boosting workforce productivity and employee morale. By stepping into that advisory role, they ensure strict legal compliance and fair discipline. They maintain healthy industrial relations, which cuts down on disputes, and they proactively build future leadership capabilities so the business can actually survive in the long term. Without this operational foundation, a company simply cannot use its human resources effectively to hit its goals. No way. Finally, Section 5, HR in the digital era, AI versus empathy. Let's shift our focus now to the future skyline of HR. How is modern tech, like AI, cloud systems, and HRIS, fundamentally changing these traditional operations? The role of functional HR is expanding so fast right now. Things like attendance, payroll processing, and even early-stage recruitment are being handed over to artificial intelligence and automated systems. But there is a profoundly important insight we need to take away from our source material today. While algorithms can scale data and track performance perfectly, technology enhances HR functions, it does not replace the need for human judgment, empathy, ethical decision-making, and leadership. I mean, you can automate a payroll system for sure, but you absolutely cannot automate the empathy required to handle a really complex employee grievance, or the human judgment you need to mentor a future leader. The human in human resources, it remains completely 100% irreplaceable. And this brilliantly illustrates our final takeaway. Everything we've covered today, the planning, the life cycle, the compliance, this is all functional HRM. It's the day-to-day operational bedrock. But it leaves us with a really compelling question. If functional HR builds this operational foundation, how do we build the strategy on top of it? How do we align these people operations with the massive long-term competitive goals of the business? Well, that is the leap into strategic HRM, which is a whole new puzzle that builds right on top of everything we've explored today. Thank you so much for joining this explainer, and keep questioning how the blueprint of your organization is built.